Through the threads of perseverance and dedication, our next speaker, Rumaitha, has woven a remarkable tapestry of achievements as an Omani scientist, environmental activist, and athlete. Rumaitha currently serves as Vice President of the Environment Society of Oman and advises global leaders on climate change and sustainable development. Her journey extends into the sports world as the Arab world's first female football analyst and as the youngest Omani to reach the South Pole. Let's welcome Rumaitha to share her passion with us.
So imagine with me Oman in the year 2100. I know it's a very, very difficult question to ask a lot of you, but if you can indulge with me, and for those who want to really take on the journey, you can close your eyes and really imagine Oman. This is 76 years from now, and we are imagining that most of us might not be able to actually be there, but our children and grandchildren will be living that. So what legacy are we leaving for our children? I know for some of you, you might imagine that we have skyscrapers and all the urban plans that have been announced have been realized. Some of you might imagine that we have flying cars and maybe very, very modern floating buildings. And some of you might go as far as assuming that we might have a space program and maybe we can go on vacation to space from Oman. These are all valid ideas and imaginations for us to kind of really foresee for the year 2100. But if I can invite you back to reality, and for those who close their eyes, that you can open them now, the climate space itself, and as scientists, it's very difficult for us to reconcile that vision that a lot of you have for Oman with the reality that sits with us, and that's the data that we already have. Based on the data, we know that the golden sands that we really boast of will cripple a lot of our modernity, specifically in fertile lands. We know that the shimmering blue ocean that we really enjoy will be very, very high to the extent that it will drown a lot of the coastal areas and the places that we call home. And we also know that there will be more frequent cyclones and, sadly, a lot of mass migration. Many Omanis will be leaving Oman in order for them to survive. Now, it might be doom and gloom, but trust me, there's hope, there's time. And I wouldn't be a scientist if I didn't actually share these information with you, but I just wanted to shed light on the fact that our future is in our hands, and our future is a tapestry of every single action that we take now. And today, this is what I'm planning on doing, to really showcase the data, what's the vision, visually, basically, because if I tell you this without you imagining, it would be very difficult, but also what are the things that we can take action now in order for us to prevent that and really sustain the vision that we have for our legacy in the future. So based on the data, what we asked AI to do, we fed it with a lot of information in regards to what the predictions that we already have for Oman, and asked it to develop images based on various areas. I'm sure you can recognize that this is possibly Jabal Akhdar in the year 2100. And this is in the prime season, so it actually loses the essence of its name as the Green Mountain. One of the key parameters that we fed the system with, or the model with, is rising temperatures. Oman is expected to have 4 degrees Celsius of increase in temperature by 2100. To give context, right now, we are facing, and we're all complaining about the heat in the summer, we're facing an increase globally of 1.2 to 1.3 degrees Celsius. So you can only imagine how hot it will be then. What about Musandam? Well, Musandam is not even protected from this, specifically when we talk about cyclones. We always had this comfort that it's only Bahr al-Arab, Arabian Sea, that is going to be impacted by cyclones. But I think Shaheen has really changed that trajectory for us. Historically, that has never happened, and this was a first back in 2021. And the assumption is it's going to creep all the way up north, even though Musandam is the most protected because it's surrounded by land and its geography itself. But that also is going to be facing a lot of cyclones. Based on data that we have right now, cyclones are expected to hit Oman once every 5 years. So just to refresh your memory, Shaheen was in 2021. A couple of years from now, we're expecting another one coming, and that's based on data that has been collected since the beginning of collecting data in Oman in the 70s. What about the deserts? It's not even a good look for the deserts either. This is a vision of how probably Rimal al-Sharqiyya will look like 76 years from now. And you can actually see there's a lot of mountain-like structures. These are actually the sand dunes that have gone so high that they're competing with the actual heights of the mountains that we have in Oman. This is as a result of infrequent or frequent sandstorms and scorching heat as well, that has contributed to this, but also one of the major losses that we will face is the fact that a lot of the indigenous communities and Bedouins who live there will no longer be able to live there. So we're losing tradition, heritage, culture all at once. And finally, the Arabian Sea. While it might be very mythical and very cool to look at this picture, the realities are very weird and very striking as well. Rising sea levels that we're expecting for Oman by 2100 is 1 meter. Just to give context, I'm 1.5 meters tall, so it's this high. This is what we're expecting in terms of sea level rise in Oman, which is why when I said in the beginning that we're expecting all our coastal areas, places that we call home now, that we're unable to pass on to future generations as a result of that. And also the loss of a lot of biodiversity. So loss of animals, loss of plants, inland and in sea. These are all going to be impacting us in the future as well. But the good news is we still have the vision of what it is to be Omani and the landmarks that makes us very proud to be here. And there is time. Interestingly, though, the time gap is very small. It's getting smaller. And the main reason behind that is because we are the last generation that is capable of doing something before we actually see those impacts. So we have the opportunity to make an action and do things now. And while it might seem that it's very doom and gloom, there's an opportunity for all of us to collaborate, which actually brings me to my purpose. One of my main purposes actually coming into this field was Cyclone Gono back in 2007. And it wasn't the climate impacts, it was more the results, the aftermath. We all came together in unity to really help each other out. And if we actually can do that, community level, country level, globally, things will be fine. Not for us, but for the legacy that we're leaving behind. That passion for the environment and advocacy took me 5 years later from Gono to the South Pole, which has been a journey that really changed my life. It was a pivotal moment. As we were enjoying this lovely view, obviously you can imagine that the quality is not the best because of the cameras back then, but this was the best calm before the storm that I kind of have had to imagine. It was after a really long day of the expedition. 8 hours of really working and doing stuff, and this is the time that we were relaxing, enjoying our sub-zero sleeping bags, really chilling, enjoying, and then we heard a crackling sound that really shocked us. That shocking sound was actually a glacier splitting, and that really caused panic within everyone because we knew that an avalanche was either coming towards us or towards the other side, and we didn't know. We could only find this out in the morning when there's daylight. All we had to do was scramble as far as possible from the area and pray that we survived. Luckily, because I'm in front of you today, we actually did survive and the avalanche hit the other side. But that journey was the biggest mental and physical challenge for me to realize that we can actually do things. If an area that is protected is unable to really even be safe from the impacts of climate change, then we need to really work together. And as a result of that, I actually became the youngest Omani to step foot on the South Pole. And this has been over 10 years ago. We need more young Omanis to actually go, so please, someone break my record as soon as possible, if possible. But that actually brought me to work more with the local community in Oman, being more active in the Environment Society of Oman. I've been active since I was a student when it was formed back in 2004. I rose to the ranks this year to vice president of the society. And a lot of the work that we do is to preserve the heritage of Oman. And when we talk about heritage, we're talking about the natural heritage. And we tend to forget a lot that heritage for us is not only culture, it's not eating halwa and wearing a dishdasha and having these folklore and dances and so on. It extends to our natural heritage, from the frankincense we burn, the fish that we eat, all the species that we really enjoy as we kind of travel through Oman and swim in the oceans and so on. This is all the mission that we're working on to preserve and protect. And amongst the work that we do, in addition to research and building capacity for Omanis, is informing a lot of policy and doing a lot of public awareness. One of the key flagship events that we did last year was the Oman Climate Dialogues, and it came as a result of a gap that we saw within community. So back in the late 2022, we heard a lot of plans from Oman. Net zero plan, hydrogen plan, energy efficiency, and so on and so forth. And everyone's talking about sustainability, but for the majority of Omanis, they have no idea, but why do we need to do this? And what's the baseline? What do we actually have right now? And what warrants us to actually do these actions? And the dialogues was, the purpose behind it was to inform, but also it's not only talking the talk, it's walking the talk as well. So what we ended up doing as a result of the panel discussions we had, the workshops, all the engagements that we did with the public, is gather all that information. We are representing civil society in the end of the day, and come up with a policy document that was provided as an advisory to the government in the form of the Environment Authority, State Council, and the Council of Ministers as well. And the white paper basically came up with 5 key recommendations. One of the main recommendations is climate data and research. If you're a scientist in Oman, you know it's very difficult to get data, so let alone climate data. We need a repository that is going to allow us to provide a lot of information and research that has to do with Oman. Oman is amongst the most vulnerable countries in the Middle East when it comes to climate, and we need to show that to the map. That perception of, oh, because we're oil rich, we can survive, should change, because there are so many things that need a lot of collaborative efforts. The second thing was investment in a green economy. We're very, very heavy dependent on fossil fuels, and we need to really look into other alternative ways, but also ways to adapt. Cyclones, Cyclone Gono, for instance, impacted the Omani economy $4.2 billion back in 2007. That's around $6 to $7 billion now with inflation. Shaheen, 200 million. And we're expecting more cyclones to really impact that. And that's only one climate change impact. So imagine all of them combined. That's a lot of investments that's required in order for us to shift. And then the third one, which is my most important thing, is involving the youth. They're the ones that are going to see the future. We need to involve them now in the decision-making table, not when the time is too late. They will be the future decision makers, and instilling that institutional knowledge from now will be very important in order for us to maintain for the future. The fourth thing is organizational strategies. Omani companies in general are quite slow in comparison to the neighboring countries and in the region in adapting sustainability as a value, in having annual sustainability reports, and also having climate risk mapping for their assets. So they don't know. If it hits, they don't know what impacts there are and what the losses are, both economically and also in other impacts that will be affecting them as well. So it's important to kind of instill that immediately and quite quickly, actually, because they're quite behind when it comes to other sectors as well across the region. And the final thing is collaborative efforts. We can't do this as one person. The mindset that the government needs to do everything needs to also change. We all have to come together, whether you're an individual, whether you're in community-based, whether you're an organization, country level, everything, we need to collaborate in order for all of these to actually come to reality. Everyone needs to come together in order for this to come to light. Now, our future is in our hands, but I would like to bring you back to another imagination. You can close your eyes as well. Imagine a headline in a newspaper that says, Oman leads climate action. Imagine the pride that you feel as an individual that you contributed to that title and that leadership. I'll invite you to open your eyes, and that is something I asked AI to do. And this is how it came up with. And I couldn't feel more prouder, even though it's not something that actually is reality, but I couldn't feel more proud for that. So every student, every professional, retiree, you name it, you all have a potential to actually be part of this journey for Oman in order for us to leave that legacy for not ourselves, our children and great-grandchildren in the future, that they can actually say, well, they really actually did a good job, our ancestors, in making sure that we survived and we are here. So again, I hope with that thinking that our future is in our hands, we're able to kind of come together. At the end of the day, every single fabric or every single thread strengthens a tapestry, and every action that you do, no matter how small, strengthens your actions towards the natural world that we have in our natural heritage. And together we can actually create a resilient and more sustainable Oman. Thank you.